Hello. Scott, are you frozen? I think you're frozen. You haven't. Okay, you're back. I see you. Hello. You cut out
Hi,
a
how
little bit.
are you guys?
You muted yourself and then unmuted yourself. Hello.
So when I introduce you, do you just want to be Miss King? Do you want me to say your full name?
You can say my full name.
Okay.
Felicia.
Okay, and I can't remember, what school are you at?
Centerline Preparatory Academy.
Okay. So are you excited? Maybe couldn't even sleep last night, you were so excited?
Yes, I'm very excited.
So did you tell any of like anybody in your school you were doing this?
Yes, I did, and they're all very excited about it.
So that's one of the things Haley and I have yet to figure out, and we really haven't had a ton of time to put a lot of thought into this, but you know, we have 4,000 teachers. How do we make sure 4,000 people know we have this?
Yeah, they were
I have
all
no
like,
idea.
what? We have a podcast?
It's new. We haven't put a ton of effort into this yet. But it's that balance of, okay, it's up. We're creating a lot of this. How do we make sure the people that want to hear it can? So that's a piece of this that we need to figure out still. All right. So it sounds like the mic is on and sounding like a late night DJ on your way home. A disc jockey, if you will. So before we actually hit record and get rolling on this, let me just jot down, just so I know, your 5 things that you kind of learned, because I want to be able to make sure we steer the conversation towards that with each one. And I'm not sure, and I'll give you, kind of your preference. When I set this up, do you want me to say your top 5 things, list them right in a row? Do you want to say, we're going to be covering the top 5 things learned as a first-year teacher, and then kind of what's number 1, and then we kind of go from there?
Yes,
Okay.
that sounds.
Okay. And it's Kalisha, right?
No. Sorry, I'm kind of
Oh, you're
leaving the
fine.
building.
You're fine. Do you want us to wait until you have?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Well, the top 5 are don't buy. Where?
Don't
Wait
buy what?
until you're too many supplies in the summer.
Mm.
Wait until everything is permanent and you're in the classroom. Plan ahead of time.
Okay.
Even when you plan, things can change. Go with the flow. Don't
That's
stress.
a big one I hear a lot about. Don't stress. How do you tell somebody not to stress? That's an interesting.
That's something I'm still working on, but I learned.
There's a lot of people that are going to be like, hold up, how do I not stress? And then what do you have for number 4?
Oh, I thought I had more than 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have don't buy too many supplies, plan ahead of time, go with the flow.
Okay. I'm trying to remember because I had a list in my brain.
Let's see. Haley might have sent me something.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Okay. That's a big one.
Yeah. Let's see. I forget what that last one was. I don't even know if I sent that. Classroom community is important. That's a biggie.
Classroom community, maybe putting an importance on classroom community.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so how this will work is basically, I will say, welcome to the Teachers Lounge today. We're in, kind of introduce you and then take like a minute or two to kind of set up the episode, and then, I'll kind of welcome you on. Haley, I'm curious to get your perspective on this as well. Okay, so we have teaching in a pandemic, self-care, how I prepared for the school year, and keeping students engaged in a virtual setting. Is that what was sent? Anyways, basically, I'll kind of set up the episode, what we're kind of doing, welcome you on, say you're from Centerline, say that you're a first-year teacher. And maybe I should just kind of make it up on the fly of what that looks like after that. You go to school for 4 or 5 years. You learn what to teach, but you learn a lot about how to teach once you're actually in the profession. So we're going to kind of walk through some of the things that you learned, starting with don't buy too many supplies. And then we'll kind of go into that rat-a-tat-tat. And, I'm almost wondering if, once we hit through the first one, I introduce number 2. So number 2, you have plan ahead of time. When you say that, what do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. Number 3, go with the flow. Don't stress. What does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. And then kind of go from there. Sound good?
Yes. Sounds
Cool.
good.
And it's Kalisha, right? Just how it's spelled?
Yes.
So my sister's name is actually Danae, DE, N''AE. And she complained, well, she's 31 and she still complains that nobody ever knows how to say her name. And she always complains that she can't get her name on one of those little bike license plates.
Oh yeah. I've gotten over not being able to find those.
You'd think she would too. Like I said, she's 31. She's got 2 kids. It's like, at what point do we kind of get through this? But whatever. All right. Full transparency. There's a good chance I'm going to butch the introduction, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and then we'll be off. Haley, you good? I assume you're sending me a thumbs up, even though I can't see you, and we'll get kind of cracking on this thing.
I mean, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Mic is on. We're recording. Cool. Welcome to the Teachers Lounge. Today we're talking with Kalisha. I didn't put your last name. King, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like you walk through a building with a little more swag, a little more drip when your last name is King? Like, my last name's Williams, and it's like, okay, there's a billion of us, but King, it's like, well, the King is here. Welcome to the Teachers Lounge. Today we're talking with Kalisha King, a teacher at Centerline Prep Academy, and we're going to be talking to her about some of the things that you learn during your first year of teaching. I've had a lot of teachers will tell me that you go to college for 4 or 5 years, and when you're in school, it is more of you learn what to teach, not necessarily how to teach. So this is something I'm pretty excited to kind of talk over with her and kind of hear. As she's finishing up her first year, what are some of the things that she learned? What are some of the things she didn't expect to happen? And, really give an insight of what it's like kind of walking through your first year of teaching. So thank you for joining us. On the first one we have as kind of your top 5 things that you learned during your first year of teaching, we have don't buy too many supplies. That's something, I think we all see, back to school sales. My mom's a teacher and she gets excited every year when Target has their back to school sale. It's exciting. You have your own classroom for the first time. You want to buy supplies. But when you say don't buy too many school supplies, what do you mean by that?
Well, when I first found out I had my job and I went buying books and stuff that I could use in my classroom to decorate, and then of course things changed and I became a virtual teacher. So it's like I have all this stuff at my house now that I can't use until next year, hopefully.
Is that exciting? That's one thing I've always kind of wondered from, teachers when it comes to a new school year. Is that like the most exciting part of a new school year is getting to buy new supplies?
Yes, it's definitely the most exciting thing for me. I was on Amazon almost every week.
And that's got to make that even tougher that, now we're back in this virtual setting. We're kind of, like you said, you weren't able to use these supplies to get into your own classroom. What do you do with these supplies that you bought and now can't use?
Well, they're currently sitting in my home office until I can actually use them.
And that's that's got to be a tough pill to swallow, that you had all these grand plans for your classroom, and now they just kind of on hold for years. We kind of get this sorted out and get back to the classroom. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, I'm just kind of looking at the list that you sent over of top 5 things that you learned about teaching during your first year is plan ahead of time. That's kind of a broad sentiment. So when you say plan ahead of time, what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm referring to the curriculum, especially. That's something as soon as you can get your hands on it, start planning, start preparing what you want to do with it. Especially as a virtual teacher, I wish I would have done it. So that I was a little more prepared.
I think you might have just been cutting out.
Uh-oh, sorry.
Can you hear me okay? No, you're fine.
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you now.
Okay, so we'll re-hit that one again because we're halfway through, and I think we just I think it was just a bad connection. All of a sudden it was you're kind of so the second thing I'm kind of hearing, jeepers. So the second thing I'm kind of curious about on your top 5 list of things that you learned as a first year teacher was plan ahead of time. Now, when you say plan ahead of time, are you talking about, curriculum and lesson plan?
Yes, definitely with the curriculum and lesson planning, because especially being virtual, it's a whole different ball game. And so it's a lot of tailoring stuff to be virtual and for your students to be able to understand the material. And it takes a lot of time making lessons to even teach every day.
And, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume when you were in college, there was not a class on how to plan a lesson when it comes to virtual learning. So how did you start doing that? Like I said, this is your first year. I think for most of us, this is our first pandemic that we've lived through. How did you start learning how to plan ahead of time for this virtual learning?
Teachers pay teachers, to be quite honest, got me through the beginning and still gets me through a lot of times when preparing things.
And, I'm going to assume that this is something that the longer you do it, the more you learn and the better you get at it.
Yes.
And how important is, this planning ahead to make sure that you know what you're going to be talking about with your students, but also for you to kind of make sure that your ducks are in a row? I know what we're doing Monday. I know what we're doing Tuesday. It's important for the students to know, but how important is this planning ahead to make sure that you are on the same page with what you want to accomplish?
Well, I'm a worrier. I like to overthink a lot of times. So it really helps me when by Sunday night I have okay, here's what's happening every day. So I'm not every day, what am I doing today? What are we doing the next day? So.
And, this plan ahead of time, it's something that, I think a lot of teachers will say is very important to them. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase the Sunday scaries that teachers go through, where it's Sunday night. It's like, what am I doing for the week? Is that something you went into your first year of teaching doing, or was it something that I don't like the feeling of not knowing what's coming next? I need to start doing more of this.
Well, I think I started out with having that fear, and then I realized I didn't like having that feeling, so I had to prepare.
And that, I think, just ease of mind has got to be a big piece of this planning ahead, that it just kind of makes everything feel like you are in control of it instead of just spinning out all the time. Because, you know, you hear a lot of teachers say, especially during your first year, it can feel like you're going a million miles an hour, and, you know, not knowing what you're about to do tomorrow's lesson that's got to be a tough pill to swallow. So, you know, this planning ahead, I think, is a nice piece to make sure that you are able to really right the ship instead of just kind of bouncing around with the waves. So number 3, don't be afraid to fail. Failure, I think, scares a lot of people. So I'm kind of curious to hear your perspective about not being afraid of this. Why is that important when it comes to teaching, especially in, you know, from the perspective of a first-year teacher?
Well, when I was in college, it was kind of etched in my brain that I was going to fail my first year. So I was always afraid, okay, I'm not going to do well. I'm not going to do well. And then I had to realize that I was actually doing fine when I got my observations. It's like, okay, I'm not doing as bad as I was thinking. You know, I don't need to be afraid of failing. Like, I just need to be passionate and teach every day and do what I'm here to do, and just not worry about if I'm failing or not, because at the end of the day, your kids are going to tell you, and you're going to see how well you're doing.
So when you say it was etched in your brain that you were going to fail, or you had this mindset of this was going to happen, where did that come from?
Well, everyone would say as a first year teacher, you always fail. And it was like, okay, well, not necessarily. You know, that shouldn't be the way we're taught to think.
Right. That seems like kind of a negative ideology to kind of go into a new career with, that you are going to fail. That's kind of, that's a tough pill to swallow right out of the gate. So, you know, kind of the next piece we have of this, go with the flow. What does that mean?
Sometimes you may have a plan for what you want to do, but that it may not be what happens. I've had days where I'd have an entire lesson planned and only get through half of it. So, like, yes, it's okay to plan and to be prepared, but sometimes things are just going to happen and you can't be angry or upset. Just go with it.
And how much of that deals with just the day itself and what it throws at you and how the kids are handling it? How much of that, you say go with the flow, and sometimes you can't get through your lessons plan. How much of realizing that even being prepared, you are still at the mercy of your students when it comes to the school day?
Oh, I very much so. Like, my students, sometimes with some concepts, they'll get it and we can move on quicker. And other times it's like, okay, well, that didn't go so well. We need to go over that again or readdress it tomorrow and take more time with the topic.
And I think that's an important qualifier of sometimes your students just aren't going to get it. You know, I think when we go to college to be a teacher and student teaching, and, you hear all of these practices about this is how to teach, this is how your students will understand it. But really being aware that your students might not get it, and that's okay. It might screw up the lessons plans for your day, but to your point, just going with the flow. So it's interesting to me that, you kind of have plan ahead of time and go with the flow, which kind of seem to be two polar opposites of each other. This going with the flow, that's got to be something that you can't do right away, that you kind of have to figure out yourself and really learn how to do that. Like, I think if I would have told you in August or September of last year, hey, I need you to go with the flow, that's one thing for me to tell you, but for you to figure that out in yourself, it's probably a lot more impactful for you to figure that piece out.
No, it was definitely hard. I think I'm just now getting comfortable with going with the flow. in the beginning, I was always concerned, well, what if we don't get this done? Well, they're not getting it. What am I supposed to do? But now I'm just like, okay, they didn't get it. We'll go back over it tomorrow.
Mm. And that, might even tie back into your don't be afraid of failure. That, I think teachers that enter the job market of teaching do so to make a difference. But, allowing yourself grace and really saying, it's okay if they didn't get it today, we have tomorrow. That's to your point, this go with the flow mentality. That's got to ease your mind a lot too. That, okay, we're going to talk about 1 + 1 = 2 on Monday. And if half your students don't get it through Monday, well, that's okay. We're going with the flow. And that's got to, be a big relief for you to know that that's okay in teaching.
Oh, it definitely is. I think I've become more comfortable with the way I teach, having that go with the flow mentality.
And, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this go with the flow mentality, and maybe we should come up with an acronym for it or something that sounds a lot cooler. But when you go with the flow, I feel like that allows you to see what works well and what doesn't work well in your classroom. Like we said, you're a first-year teacher, but going with the flow, I like to use the analogy a lot of just a lazy river. When you're going with the flow, it allows the students to set the pace for your classroom, what works well, what doesn't work well. And I think that's an important piece of this, especially for a first-year teacher. And how important is that to rely on your students to say, this is working well, this isn't working well?
I think that's the most important part for me. And my students, because we've built our relationships, are comfortable with raising their hand and saying, hey, Ms. King, I don't understand what you just said. Can you go back over it? Or can we do that again? Or, and I'll try to gauge their understanding. And if they get it, okay, we can keep going. Or, oh, you don't get it. Well, let's go back and readdress it.
And, we talk a lot on this podcast about, creating relationships with students, having a good classroom culture, having students that are engaged. That's got to really fuel a good culture in your classroom when it comes to really including them in this, we keep talking about this go with the flow mindset, but really including them in the process of what works well and what doesn't work well in their classroom. So we have go with the flow. And one of the things I'm kind of curious about, as we're kind of reviewing your list of things that you learned as a first-year teacher, putting an importance on classroom culture or environment. What do you mean by that?
Well, for me, I didn't start off as the virtual teacher. I started off as the academic specialist to support the kids, especially with our kindergartners who our teachers were trying to balance teaching hybrid and teaching virtually. And so their virtual students did not get live lesson time because their teachers were teaching to a hybrid A and a hybrid B group. So I stepped in and taught those lessons. And then once it was decided to go back 5 days, someone had to step in to teach kindergarten and first grade virtually. So building those relationships with these students who already had a teacher and now are being transferred to another teacher was really important to get their focus and to get their attention, because they were like, well, I already had a teacher. I want that teacher. I don't want you. And I had to build their trust and earn their trust for them to know, okay, she's my teacher. She's not bad. We really like her. So
how important is that trust for a first-year teacher with their students?
It's very important, because my students, I don't think if they didn't have that trust or that level of communication, they wouldn't feel comfortable to talk to me. Like, my kids will come in the session, talk about everything under the sun, or what's happening in their day or what's going on at home, because they trust me and they see me as a person they can come to. Or even with their schoolwork, if they're working on their async work, their work on their own, they're able to come back to me and say, hey, Miss King, I didn't understand that. You know, can you go over that sometime in class so I can get it?
And, you know, one of the things I've always been kind of curious about when it comes to a first year teacher is kind of this process of self-care that you go through. You know, I think we can all agree that being a first year teacher in 2020 is not like any other year for first year teachers. So, you know, like you said, you prepared all this stuff, you know, you bought your supplies, and all of a sudden you're teaching virtually and you're a first year teacher. How do you take care of yourself outside of school?
Well, that's still a process for me, I believe, but like now I've started to limit the days that I work on school after school, because if I don't, I felt myself getting to the point of a burnout where I was just done, where my brain was just tired. So I had to limit and try to get as much as I can done in the day so that it doesn't have to come home with me, and to know that if I don't get it done today, it can be done tomorrow. I don't have to get it done at night.
Was that a tough balance to strike?
Yes, definitely, because I was the one, nope, it's got to be done now. It's got to be done. And everyone around me was like, why are you doing that? Why? And like even my grandma, who was a teacher, tries to tell me to keep that balance between school and home.
And that's a tough balance to have, especially in this environment. You know, my mom's a high school math teacher. She's been teaching for, 25 years. And when she started, you know, you could check out. But now with Google Classrooms, virtual learning, email, some parents will text the teacher. That's got to be tough to, on the days that you allow yourself to not work all night long, or, not take your classwork home with you. That's got to be tough to completely disconnect.
It's very tough. I took a short trip right before spring break, so I had to tell myself to turn off the notifications, but I still found myself looking at the notifications to see if anyone had sent a message and asked for help, even though I was on vacation.
So this balance of kind of knowing yourself and really discovering yourself through this first year of when you need to work on this balance, when you need to kind of check out, and when you can take things home. Do you think that's a big key in avoiding burnout when it comes to yourself as a new teacher?
Definitely. Because I remember when I got to my point of a burnout, it was because I was working myself and doing so much more every day and trying to work even after I got off of work and trying to work until 6-7 o'clock at night, which definitely wasn't a good thing.
Do you think that's something that just comes with experience, that as you continue down this road of teaching 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years from now, you'll have a better handle on what this balance is? Like, I just wonder if this is something that every teacher has to find out about themselves. And it'll obviously evolve over time, but like we said, you're a first year teacher, you're discovering this about yourself for the first time. And I guess maybe what I'm asking is, do you think this balance and what you take home with you and what you leave at school will become more efficient as you go?
I definitely think so, especially because there was always watching those videos and seeing people say, keep that balance, but I found myself not even listening to that advice and having to figure it out, and I'm still figuring it out, so definitely.
And the tough piece of that is, these videos that people have about, these balance and avoiding burnout and stuff like that. That's great content. Everybody needs to consume that content. It's, it's important for teachers to understand, but that's what their personal style allows. That's, what works for you might not work for me. So really understanding what your process is for yourself, that's got to be a unique balance to kind of find what works for me and what doesn't work. And I've got to imagine that's got to be a little frustrating too. That, okay, teacher X says this, that doesn't work for me. I have to do this. Is that tough to kind of work through?
Yes, because it's like I kind of feel like, well, am I failing here at trying to keep that balance because what worked for this other person didn't work for me, and I kind of had to see, well, my strategies are definitely different.
And it's got to be tough. You know, you look to these, you know, we all look to people that have done this before us. And if you go to a teacher and say, you know, how do you do this? And they give you advice. And if it, you know, it does or doesn't work for you, that's got to be tough to kind of say, okay, I need to figure out what my own process is. Let's see. Where are we at here? So I think we hit the 5. Go with the flow. Don't be afraid to fail. Putting an importance on a classroom. What grade do you teach? Sorry, I've got it in my notes somewhere, but I can't seem to find it.
I teach kindergarten and first grade.
That's a tough age for your first year. And virtually.
Oh yeah, it's definitely tough. But I think I handle it well. I do get complimented on my kindergartners being a lot more mature than most kindergartners and being able to successfully mute themselves and unmute, and they do it very well, and so I'm proud.
So as a first year teacher, what do you think some of the keys to creating a good classroom culture and really having a good engaging classroom when it comes to kindergarten and first graders is? Because that's a tough age to kind of come in for your first year.
Well, I think it all starts with getting to know your students and letting them know who you are and letting them know that you're a human as well and you're a person just like them. And I think laughing with them really allows me to build that relationship, because we sometimes just have moments where we're able to just laugh, or where they just want to tell jokes and they want to spend 10 minutes on that. And I think sometimes they really enjoy sharing what's going on with them, and sometimes I spend a little too much time on it, but just letting our classroom and our lesson time be a moment where they can just relax and put their guards down.
So one of the things I'm kind of curious about, and this fascinates me for a couple levels, because like we said, you're a first year teacher, so you don't have these years of experience to kind of look back on. But when it comes to working with your kindergartners and your first graders, and you talk about, you know, letting them joke, allow them to be themselves, how do you know what the balance is to kind of say, okay, let's have fun. We have to get to the curriculum. How do you make sure the giggles and the fun don't go on too long, but they go on long enough to make sure you have a good classroom culture? What's that balance like?
That's kind of a hard one, because there are times where we'll spend a little too much time laughing and talking. Like today, my first graders were very happy to share their good news, and I look at the clock and we spent 30 minutes almost talking about good news and having them share, and it's like, oh wait, we still have to do our work, so let's go back. So it's like, it's a delicate balance where it's a little hard to do.
And you know, I think delicate balance is the perfect word for that, because to your point, you want these young kindergarten and first grade students to be engaged. When, you know, you ask for good news, you don't want to just have nobody answer. But, you know, once they do, and, you know, it goes on for too long, how important is that for a first year teacher to not hold themselves to a standard of, oh my gosh, we spent 30 minutes on good news, the whole day's ruined, I don't know what we're going to do, the day is lost? How important is that to allow yourself the moment to say, okay, you know, we may have spent too much time, but that's okay. There's still plenty of the day to get to. We can kind of, you know, without sacrificing classroom culture, that now I know we can't let it go on this long. We have to get back to some of our teaching. How important is that to allow yourself some of that grace?
It's very important. It goes back to that going with the flow. And just sometimes you will spend extra time on good news, or sometimes they don't have much to share. So it'll be a quick thing. But I'm also confident in the times that I've set for their lessons. So like there's that little bit of extra time in there for them to have those moments where they just want to talk or share their news.
And is that something you knew going into your first year of teaching, to allow these times of buffer? Or is that something you figured out during this journey of your first year?
No, it's definitely something I've figured out, and it took me quite a while. I only figured it out in January.
Well, I would say, I mean, you figured it out. That's the big thing. Doesn't matter when. Did you find that, was it frustrating when you would try certain things in the class and it didn't work out the way you thought it would?
In the beginning, I was quite frustrated when things wouldn't work out, but I had to learn that that's how it is to teach. Not all kids are the same, and my students are not the same every day.
And that's got to be something that, what fascinates me about teachers are, for the majority of their life, they've been in school, whether that's elementary school, middle school, high school, and then college. Everything is so structured. There's right and wrong answers. There's not too much gray area. But then when you're in a classroom by yourself, there is a lot of gray area. There is, this didn't work out, but maybe there's an opportunity to fix it. How tough is that to go from these years of everything is structured to now, I don't want to call it a free for all, but you're figuring it out as you go?
It was very hard. Like once I got into the classroom, it's like I kind of had moments where I freaked out, like, oh my gosh, these are my kids, and it's kind of my choice of what we do every day and how the day goes. And at first I really didn't know what I was doing every day.
And that's gotta be a tough pill to swallow, of what am I doing? Because you're so used to being on top of things. Normally teachers are the top students. You're used to the good grades and stuff like that. And kind of the, what am I doing? That's gotta be a new feeling for the first time.
Oh, it was definitely a new feeling for me. Something I enjoy it now that I've learned to have that control and to be in charge.
And are there still things, as we're in May and we're kind of finishing up the first year of school, is there still things that you're learning?
Definitely.
What do you think you're still learning?
Mostly how to finish out the year and to keep everything, together, because like I do have sometimes, like especially with my first graders, those power struggles where they're, challenging that authority and having to learn how to deal with them challenging the authority. Or sometimes, like, I do have a student who does have some challenging behaviors where it's not bad, but it's some things that I'm working on. So I'm learning how to deal with these things.
Yeah. And that's got to be something. Do your students know you're a first year teacher?
Yes, I've told them.
Do you think that's good or bad?
Well, I told them towards like a month ago, because they honestly asked, and I'm always very honest with them when they ask me questions, and they were pretty surprised. So, my students thought I had a lot more years on me than I do. So I guess it's a good thing.
That is a good thing. I feel like that's a compliment when they think that you have more experience than you do. I think that's something we all look for, is for people to think we're better at things than maybe we think we are. Cool. So I think we've hit pretty much everything on our notes. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. so kind of how the process works is I'll edit this together. We'll kind of pass it through to the powers that be to kind of review it. Haley will start working on the blog, and then we'll kind of go from there and see what they say, if this is one that can get published, and then we have a blog and we'll be ready to go. So we should have an answer in a week or so. Maybe 2 weeks. It's kind of our busy season.
Okay.
We'll go
Well,
from there.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, if you have any questions, let us know and we'll kind of go from there.
All right. Have a great
Cool.
rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know.
That was a waste of time. I had a really good meeting with Leah though.
That's good.
I always tell her when we're done that her and I just need to schedule some time to just shoot the breeze. Like, I don't know, once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just to catch up.
Yeah. What did you do?
We talked about our feelings. We talked about our hopes, our dreams. No, we talked about basically. Why do I hear an echo of myself?
Oh, because I don't have my headphones anymore. I was sitting on the ground taking notes.
Taking notes. So you think you can get a blog out of this just so we don't completely screw her?
Honestly, I have worked with so much less than that.
So I almost wonder if you still do the top 5 things and just so it feels like it's hers and you just type it in your own words and what I was saying. Like I felt like I sounded more like I knew what I was talking about than she did, as mean as that is to say. Now I can't hear you. Would you prefer I keep the microphone?
Sure. I don't care. Can you hear me now?
Yes. So yeah, I say let's just get her a blog. Maybe it's not even the top 5 things. Maybe it's just what I learned. A couple paragraphs on work-life balance.
Yeah.
That was a disaster.
It was not good. It was
But
not
honestly, like we've done what, 12 or 13 episodes. We've only had 2 we didn't like. Like I'd say that's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, but did you think that, I don't know why my screen is so blurry on Zoom. Did you see it coming?
Yeah.
And both times that it was a crapshoot, you saw it coming, didn't you?
Yeah, but I don't have the heart to tell him no once we do our first initial talk. Like I feel like we haven't not met with anybody.
I will do it.
Okay. We haven't not met with anybody after the first one, right? Like the kid today.
Correct.
My first impressions of him, super arrogant. He's going to make it about him, but it's going to be pretty good. He has a lot to talk about, but I think it's going to be me. So I'm going to try and keep him away from me. I don't know if you got that impression, but it's going to be the reason I'm so successful is because I do this, and that. I'm going to try and keep him away from that. And what would you tell teachers? Not,
it's funny
why
to
does
me
this
that you
work
think
for
that.
you? Why?
Yeah. I don't know. The
'Cause
whole
you
like
think I'm cocky.
I
I'm
don't
cocky.
know,
I'll be the first one to tell you.
Sometimes.
Born
I
with
don't
some
know.
drip,
It's just
what
funny
can I
when
say?
you have that critique about people.
I'm fine with
'Cause, I mean,
confidence
there's
and
obviously-
cockiness. I'm trying to get you to
I
be
know.
cocky, but don't be over the top. I'm good at this because of this. Like, I'm just worried his episode is going to be very teachers should do what I do, and here's why. Where I want it to be more of what has worked for you. You didn't invent the
Right.
internet,
This is what
man.
I learned.
Yeah, you use the internet.
Yeah.
You didn't invent it. So that I think.
Right. No, I get that.
Yeah.
I do think it'll be good though. If you
Yep.
can steer
No,
it
I think
right,
it'll be really
it'll
good
be
too. As long as he doesn't make it about him, it'll be a very good episode. So I was thinking about
yeah.
Your math anxiety gal.
Taylor.
She's a first year teacher,
Taylor.
right?
Correct. And I think
Give
we should do something with her.
Give
about
her the
it.
top 5 things I learned about teaching. She would crush this one.
I know.
because
know. This one is so bad.
hers would not be don't buy too many supplies. It would be,
No.
I don't know what, but do we have a meeting with her?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so.
Yeah,
Hold
I
on.
don't know.
I'll pull it up.
Anyways, Lee and I were talking about
Pretty sure.
basically how do we get ducks in a row?
Oh, wait.
How do we-
Before you do that. Okay, hold
Yes.
on. I have one more thing. Shoot, you made me forget it. What was it?
I
It's
don't
about
know.
the podcast. Oh, yeah. So I know that I'm nice and like I have a hard time with certain things, but I don't
Mhm.
have a hard time telling people no with this kind of stuff. So like if you know in your heart it's going to be crap, tell me and I'll be the one to be like, I think this would be a really good blog actually.
Okay, perfect.
And we don't even have to record. I can just work with them on blogs.
Okay, so I would say we'll get her blog done in the next 2. I don't want to speak for you, but do you think we can get something done
I can
for her in 2
prioritize it.
weeks and say we
Sure.
ran it through our process? This is our process.
Our,
We thought it worked. We thought it worked better as a blog.
Yeah, just like yeah, I like that. I'm making it. Me put in my Trello. Yeah, so like if you Slack me and say like absolutely no pod,
Yep.
I can be the one to be like, hey, I think the structure of this would best be served in a blog.
Okay.
I don't mind.
All right,
Okay,
cool. I feel good
Felicia.
about that because I would like to give her something. Are we meeting
I know.
with? I already forgot her name.
Taylor
Taylor.
Taylor
Yep.
Hucks.
Yep.
Yes.
Are we meeting with her again?
We are meeting.
I don't
we
want
have-
to pigeonhole her. Jeepers creepers. I don't want to pigeonhole her too. It has to be the top 5 because she might want to do more than that. But I would like to bring it up with her and say, "Yo,
Yeah.
Tully's so great, by the way.
What?
Tully's so great, by the way. We just kind of
Tully?
shot the breeze for a half hour yesterday.
Yeah, we were texting.
No, she told me.
Yeah, what'd she say?
I just got a text from Haley. That was it.
Yeah. Oh well, no, let me read this to you. I think
I
it's
said
funny.
you were
And also,
devastated that she's leaving, so she didn't want to get on and see you.
I am. Yeah, that's why. We have a time set up with Taylor Hucks in June.
Okay.
Yes. The meeting is set. So Tully was telling me how she's planning on moving to California.
Yep.
And I said, that's a big move. And then, what did we say? She's like, yeah, my husband's going to be a professor, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's so cool. If I'm ever out that way, I'll let you know. It would just be a casual 2,346 mile drive. I could probably bike that in a weekend.
No, you couldn't.
Yes, it'd probably take me 47 weeks to bike there, but yes, totally, it's great.
She is.
Okay,
So
back
Leah,
to yes, Leah, I'm here.
basically, we're gonna have to rebrand it, which I knew this conversation was coming. I designed it fully knowing it was somebody who's gonna get upset along the way, and Leah wasn't upset. She's like,
Right.
we have to, and I was like, no, that's fine. So she
Yeah,
talked a
so-
lot about. Actually, she just emailed me, which makes it sucks because I love the logo. I think it's so perfect. Not because I made it. I think it's just.
Yeah.
So she just fired me an email. Leah's going to connect with Courtney Samuels, Brian Verlinde, Terry to share initial branding game plan, Leah and Scott to work with Julie to determine graphics for production. A lot of that's going to be your stuff. Leah, Scott, and
I know.
Haley work with Brian Valindi to prioritize web updates. Scott and Haley to create any necessary content calendars to organize, sort publication timeline and future content production schedules. Yep.
That's me.
Communication and
That's
social
me.
teams use this content in future promotions. Celebrate. But basically what she wanted to get on the same page was Scott and Haley are amazing. We need to start having bigger conversations with bigger people to get this to the places that it needs to be. Because I think I keep making the same joke of this is getting bigger than we thought it was going to, and what do we do now? And Leah's like, I think you're 100% right. It is taking off. The stuff you guys are doing is amazing. Like your written stuff, she's like, the stuff I've listened to is really good. It needs more effort and resources around it, and we need to start basically forcing people to be cool with us. So that was one of the things I told her. I said, yeah, Haley and I have been working on trying to get the site up. This was supposed to be up 2 years ago. But you carry a bit of a bigger stick than we do. And she's like, oh no, we'll take care of it. Nah, that's fine. Leah, because it's one thing for Scott and Haley to say we need this. It's another thing for director Leah to say,
Oh, I know.
I told
Yeah.
Haley June 1st to get this up. It needs to be up. So,
But like, again, that's not something that I can control at all,
she
which
also
is why
said,
I feel so bad.
She also said she likes the dynamic of you continuing to plan meetings and calendars. So for that to keep going.
Did she really say that?
No, she made a comment that Scott doesn't know how to schedule his own meetings. And I said, oh, I know. I tell Haley that all the time, that I just don't want to do it. And she's like, oh, I know you well enough to know you know how to do it, but Haley will do it for you. So you just let her. That's exactly what it is, Leah. She's like, oh, I know. Everybody's
Oh my
aware
God.
of it. So Jen
I'm
always says,
sorry.
use your powers for good. I don't care. I really like
I know.
Leah.
I
Leah
know
could
that-
say
okay.
very few things to me that would actually make me upset.
I
And
know,
she
but
knows
you
she
know
was
I didn't
joking.
say
And
that. Yes.
I don't care, Haley. I'm more aware of this than you probably realize.
Aware of what? Like your
That you-
manipulations?
Yes.
I know.
wouldn't say-
I know you
I wouldn't
manipulate
say-
me.
I wouldn't say manipulations.
It's not like toxic manipulation. I know what
I
it
would
is.
say empowerment.
No, you're capitalizing on the fact that I will help you.
Jen tells me probably once or twice a week, use your powers for good. Nah,
Yeah,
using
not
the-
evil. I know what you're
but
doing.
no, basically it was 45 minutes of she loves what's happening. We just have to get, she's basically trying to avoid Terry finding out about this and being like, what is this? And Thea having to fight my battle. And all of a sudden everybody's lining up and being like, what are we doing? And Leah's like, full transparency, I will be on the side of you, Thea, and Courtney. It's like, appreciate you. Because that's one of the things I said, I'm fine bringing all these people in as long as they don't think, wow, they're getting 10,000 downloads. This is a great platform to talk about students and how to get students into our building. And Leah's like, nope, not a chance. So
No.
I'm a big fan of
Oh,
Leah.
no, that's not
I
the
tell
focus.
I tell her all the time, I wish we got to work together more. Leah and I think are wired pretty similarly in terms of how we think, not necessarily how we act, but how we think is often.
Okay. I was gonna say
very
how you
similar.
act is not similar at all.
No, but how we think. Her and I have had, like, we drove to Lansing together before, and the stuff we talk about is very similar in how we think things should,
Yeah.
kind of how to play the game of making sure everybody's happy and stuff like that and not offending anybody. So it was good.
She has been a really big advocate or very supportive of this whole thing.
Yep. That was one of the things I was telling her. It's like,
So I think it's good that you guys.
I feel bad for Haley that she's writing all the stuff and there's nowhere for it to go. Well, the podcast has a place. The written stuff doesn't. It's, we've got 6,000
Which is why I
downloads.
haven't hightailed it to get more done, because it's nowhere.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I was telling her. It's like, we've got 6,000 downloads, 12 episodes, 12 blogs, and we really haven't even tried yet. Like, we haven't
don't have
done anything with
12 blogs.
whatever we've got. But that was, she was right along
Well,
with that
okay.
of, this is something that has the potential to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the stuff we've
Yes,
done
it
is
does.
amazing. I think her words were, the stuff you've done is amazing. Talking about both of us, obviously. But
Oh, thanks.
you haven't tried to even get eyeballs on it yet. And we haven't. We upload it. And that's it. So
Well, we can't get eyeballs on any of my stuff yet because we
that's
don't
as
have-
I'm saying. There's nowhere to put your stuff, and we
I'm
don't market
nothing.
the episodes. I'll stop.
I know. Well, no, it's like from an outsider's perspective, I'm literally nothing until, but I won't be anything anyway because it's going to be teacher names, which I really appreciate. So it's like the only people that know I'm involved are the people involved. And I kind of like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What are
I'm
you
cool with
thinking?
that.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, if there's anything anybody knows about me, it's that I like to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I let you post that video of me on Instagram is because my head wasn't in it.
Cool. So yeah,
That was a good sweater for that one.
when I close out of this, I am not going to say export this video, and I think we're both cool with that.
No, can you still export it? You don't have to edit it at all.
Sure, I'll upload it to YouTube and send you the link. How's that?
Will people see it on YouTube?
No, I'll put it on our test account one.
Isn't the test account the one that video is on?
What video?
The one, remember I was working with Emily, it was in an email, and you were like, I'll put it on the test one, and then they were like, aren't people gonna see it on the test account that aren't supposed to, the internal? Did you make an NHA teachers one or something? Then any NHA internal?
NHA internal.
Okay, that's separate completely now, right?
Yes. So
Okay,
the test
so this
one,
is-
there's no subscribers.
Okay, nobody will see anything.
Every time I put a video on there, it gets like 1 view. It's normally me. So
It's normal. That's so sad.
it's
Okay.
fine. Cool. Well, I'm gonna close out and let this thing export, and then I'm gonna try
Thanks.
and beat the traffic home.
Yeah, it's just so I don't have to. I don't know. That's how I usually write the blogs, is I listen again. So it'd be
That's fair.
good to next time. Once I know
Cool.
that we're not doing one, I'll have a different. I know what to do if it's just a blog.
That's fine. I'm not too worried
Okay.
about it.
I'm not worried about it. I'll prioritize this one just to make her feel good, though.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I
Okay.
will talk to you tomorrow then.
Sounds good. Okay, drive safe. I think
Tally
it's sun
ho.
raining here.
Tally
Bye.
ho.
Tally ho.